was really encouraged listening to the arguments and the responses by the justices. I'm very hopeful we could see a 7-2, 8-1, maybe even a 9-0 decision. And I think that's because this is a very straightforward case. The Constitution is very clear, laying out the qualifications for individuals who are running for president and vice president, and it's a uniquely national office. So this is one of these circumstances where the states can't add additional requirements. I think a lot of the justices focused on that fact. And I think there was also a bit of skepticism because President Trump, in all the 91 indictments, has not been indicted for insurrection. And the court expressed some concern about that and the fact that chaos, I think, would ensue if you have a wide variety of different standards being applied across the country. And I thought that the court was very concerned about that kind of dynamic emerging.
Yeah, aside from not being charged again or convicted for insurrection, several state Supreme Courts have already tossed this. The only one that moved through a Supreme Court within the state was Colorado. Obviously, Maine did that through the Secretary in that state. I wanted to move to Todd Rokita, if I can, Attorney General, if I can, in this legal briefing, and we have some of this too. You both signed on to it, and it reads, quote, "The Colorado court's decision will create widespread chaos. Most obviously, it casts confusion into an election cycle that is just weeks away. Beyond that, it upsets the respective roles of the Congress and the states and the courts," end quote. AG Rokita, your thoughts here? Do you think that point was made during these oral arguments? I'm sure you've listened along.
Yeah, I sure do. And the last time we were on your program, Patrick and I called for a 9-0 decision. And I'm glad to see that he's joining me almost in that now because it is very straightforward. Patrick and I co-led actually 27 states altogether. And our thanks goes out to all those like-minded states, those common sense states who agreed with our brief and said, you know what, this doesn't help. In fact, this dilutes the power of the Trump voter in our respective states if one or more states are allowed to take that candidate off the ballot. So there's a voter suppression, voter dilution, if you will, aspect to all this, because as Patrick says, you know, we got to remember there's only two offices in the country that this scenario affects, and that's president and vice president. And it's only those two is because every American citizen gets to vote for these two offices who's over the age of 18. So very unique circumstances. I think the justices, again, got it. It's a very straightforward case. And by the way, regarding insurrection, guys, not only was he not indicted for insurrection, he certainly wasn't convicted. And ultimately, under the 14th Amendment, what we argued is that it's quite clear that deciding whether someone was an insurrectionist, think Shays Rebellion, Fry's Rebellion, all these rebellions we had around the Civil War era when the 14th Amendment came into place, it's for Congress to decide that. So in essence, it's a political question, not a legal one, whether someone's an insurrectionist, and we pointed that out in our brief. And for all these reasons, I'm looking forward to President Trump staying on the ballot in Colorado and the rest of the 50 states and territories.
Sure, that's interesting. Again, pointing back to Congress and the read on the 14th Amendment here. But A.G. Morrisey, looking at the way it's headed, at least for this case, that perhaps Trump will remain on the Colorado ballot, doesn't this ultimately give the decision back to the people? The voters, they can choose whether or not they want to vote for him.
Well, I think that's right. And the big issue here is that we've been witnessing over the last 6 months to a year, the other side doing anything imaginable to try to get President Trump off the ballot. And at the end of the day, I think the American people and the court, I'm hoping, will come to the conclusion that the best way to resolve disputes is at the ballot box. And that's all that this case is about. And I do want to commend Todd Rokita and his staff and all the states that joined, because the fact is that we have a lot of states that are weighing in, being really clear about some of the limits of state authority and what happens in a situation like this when it absolutely needs to be resolved by a federal body. And so I'm actually very hopeful we're going to get a positive result, and then we can start to shift the discussion to the election contest between President Trump and Joe Biden.
Well,